Buff Nation, what is going on? We're here for a Buff Blitz with Russ from Buffs News Weekly. Hey, it's been a little while since we've connected. Um, Thanks for joining. Being willing to do this with me. You're out in Florida right now. How's everything going? How's the move been? You're back in Colorado. What's been up in the life of Russ?
Yeah, no, I'm on a work trip in Florida right now, but yeah, the move's been great. It's so good to be back in Colorado. Very close to campus, so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, overall, yeah, Colorado, man, absolutely love it. There's a
Yeah.
reason that people wanna be in Colorado, that's for sure.
Well, I love it. Right around Longmont, right? So, have you been recognized as Russ from Buffs News Weekly yet? Has that happened?
No, no, it is not. I don't think it will for a long time, unless probably the only place I'd probably ever get recognized would probably be at a CU football game, and who knows then. But uh, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Oh man, I love it. This has been fun, man. We had a hell of a lot of great recruits, I think, visit over the last couple months or so, I guess, since May. And now we are starting to see some things change. We beat Florida State for a nice commit. We get a flip from Liberty. Russ, don't overreact with this, but I gotta say, we went from having, no high school commits like 3 months ago to now we have the 102nd best high school class in the class of 26 right now. So I would say that's, fairly decent for how we normally recruit high school at this point of the year.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it all along. Recruiting for CU, we're starting to realize, and Coach Prime, there's not a lot of people or not a lot of players that are going to commit
Yeah.
early.
Yeah. Yeah.
Colorado is always, I think, going to be a late bloomer when it comes to the recruiting classes. I know it doesn't feel great as a fan to have to wait for this long. And, we have people crashing out all the time of saying, like, hey, we're not getting any 2026 recruits, worst recruiting class. Of course, other fans are saying that too. We've got to realize that it's all going to be late. And what I tell a lot of my audience is it doesn't matter until the ink dries in November.
Yeah.
So where we're at in recruiting right now, I said it when Mueller committed to Colorado. I said, hey, great, I'm glad he's committed. I won't really be wanting to celebrate until November. And things are starting to pick up. I like the momentum we're seeing. I like the momentum we've seen from some of the visits,
Hmm.
which is great. I'm very interested, obviously we can chat about it tonight of, what you're thinking as far as the recruits go. Who do you think is leaning the Colorado way? But overall, I think the 2026 class is starting to shape up very nicely, and we're starting to see things. My one prediction for the 2026 class, and Dave, you let me know if you're in the same boat as me. I think it's going to be Coach Prime's first class that gets 2 5 stars.
Oh wow. That that's a big prediction. Okay. Okay. Um, I'm cool riding that wave. I haven't really thought about that though. So I mean, before we break down Preston Ashley, Maurice, all these guys are 4 commits. I mean, who do you got your mind on right now? Entertain me a little bit. Who are these 5 stars going to be?
Well, I think the 1 5 star that I think we are really hot on the trail of, and everybody kind of knows it, I think, and especially obviously last weekend with the surprise visit, I think it is Cedar Morgan is really starting to lean the way of Colorado. As far as who the second 5 star would be, I'm not sure yet. I think it'll eventually be somebody late in the cycle because it seems like every year Coach Prime has kind of a last moment, somebody that's maybe not on our radar the whole cycle,
Mhm.
and then kind of, really starts to come on strong towards the end. that's just my prediction, just from what we've seen so far with Colorado and Coach Prime, is there's always somebody that I think surprises everybody in the class. And we've seen that kind of every year. So that's where I'm at. I don't know who the second 5-star is. I feel like we're getting closer to the moment where Colorado will get 2 in a single class.
Oh man. Well, I mean, that would be tremendous. And yeah, man, I think it's so funny, man. At this point, Russ, do you just always feel this way, man? I always find it funny, man. Like the NFL, because of the draft, salary cap, things like that. I would say a good 80% of fan bases are like feeling hopeful in the offseason, like going into the season. I feel like it's maybe like 10% of college football fan bases that feel good about going into the season, because they're always focused on what they don't have, what they need, all these big budget schools getting after it. So it's been, it's funny, man. This is our third year with Coach Prime here, third recruiting cycle, and people still asking me in the comments, why aren't they going after high school guys? This is just how we do it. We go by our own rhythm with this right now, and having 4 or 5 guys right now, hopefully before July starts, I think that's kind of right on par. And if we're able to start increasing, I guess, the overall quality of our recruiting, our recruit commits, that would be fantastic. But yeah, I guess with that being said, while I'm pulling this up, guys, be sure to go subscribe to Russ over on his channel. Links in the description. We got a lot of people in here from his stream, so that's awesome. But let's go ahead and go over like the guys that we got right now. I think that this would be fun because I haven't gotten your take yet on our first, I guess, official blue chip guy we brought in here, Preston Ashley, corner safety. I think on 3 or whatever had his measurements at like 6 feet, like 185 now. So a little bit bigger. Yeah. What do you think about him? Do you think he's going to play corner, safety? I haven't watched any of his interviews yet, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on him and, choosing the Buffs over Florida State poverty program. And Syracuse, I think, was in it too. Maybe I was lying about that, but Florida State nonetheless.
Yeah, no. I think he does slot as a corner when it gets all said and done. I do think that it's him going to be playing corner. I think that's part of the reason that he wanted to come to Colorado. I think, if you're a corner and you want to play with the best, like coming and playing with Coach Prime is an absolutely massive thing to do. As far as it's good seeing us beat out some of the Florida schools. It's good seeing us get that first true 4-star. Gavin Mueller, you could also say 3-4-star player at the tight end spot as well. That's really cool. But seeing Preston Ashley go ahead and commit very quickly, I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dave, you might know, I don't remember having seen his name linked to Colorado for like a long time. It's been more recently. Again, I think that's just how Colorado is recruiting. Is they're kind of going in droves and cycles where they go hard after just a couple players until they commit, and then they move on to others. But they really focus on individual players rather than a massive class of just like, hey, we're going to focus on 20 players. We're going to try and get all 20 right now. And so to see him commit so quickly, to see him all in on Colorado so quickly is really nice. But I also think it really talks to kind of the momentum that we're seeing the last couple weeks, where we're really starting to see, the momentum pick up on a few names, including your Cedar Morgan, the linebacker that just came this past weekend. I know his name has really been starting to heat up and pick up when it comes to his links to Colorado.
Yes.
So it's definitely starting to happen. You can tell that the recruiting cycle is really starting to pick up for Colorado.
Yeah, there are a few guys I would love to go through and talk through. I got the visits list opened here. Well, I did. And then I closed it out. One moment, please.
No worries.
All right. So some things that I'm just finding out right now. We're looking at scheduled visits. So we already got one scheduled for September 9th, Mark Hallway, offensive tackle. Um, don't really know much about him, but yeah, let's talk about Rodney Colton. We can talk about Carson Crawford, then maybe get into some of the other guys such as Cedar Morgan. Of course, we need to talk about Deacon Schmidt, but this is maybe this is I'm trying to will it into existence right now, Russ. But you were talking about this is the year we land 2 5-stars. I'm back on the Coach Hart supporting train. I need to see it happen. He needs to land a blue chip linebacker at some point, right? I just want to see it happen. It's got to happen. I don't like calling for him to be fired. Like I don't like that. I want to see him succeed, prove all the haters wrong. I feel pretty good right now, honestly, about Rodney Colton. Probably the best that I felt about any of these like 4-star linebackers that, I mean, there haven't been a lot of them, but out of the guys that have been 4-star linebackers that I've visited, I feel like there's some good momentum with him. What do you think?
Yeah, no. Rodney Colton's the one that I was talking about. I think there is some great momentum with him. I think Carson Crawford is going to be committing. That's two linebackers in the class of 2026. You add that to Mantrez Walker last year. And so this whole like Coach Hart can't do anything. Like he's not closing on the absolute best of the best 5-star linebackers in the class, but there's only so many per class, and you don't see other schools, beating down the door to have somebody fired because they didn't get one of like three 5-star linebackers in the entire class. So, if he's going to pull in a 4-star linebacker and a 3-star linebacker this year, what are people going to say then? Like, I said this a couple weeks ago, Dave, on stream, and I would love to get your take right now because again, my chat is very anti-Hart. Me personally, I'm not necessarily on the break the door down, fire Hart, train right now. But the big thing for me is the on the field production for the linebackers. I feel like we haven't necessarily had the best of the best, and yet the last couple years, the linebackers on the field have been one of the best positions on the team. Like last year, Nikhil Green, Levanta Bentley were like the anchors of that defense and being able to play. And yes, when we struggled as a team, guess what? We struggled because the linebackers struggled, it seemed. The games that they had troubles with were the games that the rest of the defense struggled with. So we kind of start and end there. But a lot of our success last year on the defense came through that linebacking core. And I remember constantly praising them and talking about how good they were. And we talk about how good Nikhil Green was. So my
Mhm.
question is like, is there really a problem with Hart? Like, I don't think he's on the hot seat as much as people think, just because he's not getting those 5-star linebackers. What is your opinion on kind of the Coach Hart stuff and what we're actually seeing from the product to the recruiting when it comes to like Rodney Colton and Crawford?
Yeah, great question. First off, I think just most of the fans in general, man, they just, or maybe it's a loud minority, I don't know, but whenever we're in the chat, they do not like Coach Hart, and I find this whole thing honestly incredibly entertaining. I love it, and honestly, I love flip flopping how I feel from month to month on Coach Hart. I was riding the Coach Hart wave after Nikhil Green was like a second team all Big 12 linebacker. That was amazing. The thing that pissed me off about Coach Hart is that you should have closed the deal with the BYU linebacker. Was it Taggart?
Yep.
You let him go off to Cal, man. And we should not be losing transfer portal battles against Cal with Coach Prime and this staff. That's just how I felt about it. So I've been, a little bit more definitely stocked down. I apologize to my whole subscriber base for leading them astray. I said I lied to them about Coach Hart, but now I'm starting to get excited again. If we see a good year again out of other G5 guys a second year in a row. We saw that last year with Nikai Hill-Green. But if Hughes and French, they play really good, it's kind of going to be undisputed that at the very least Hart can coach these guys up if they're experienced linebackers, get them to play well in the system. I think it is worth raising questions over his development of guys that have been more raw and haven't necessarily played a lot of college football prior to coming to CU. I think that that's totally valid. And but if we get a second year of a guy from the linebacking core getting some sort of all conference
Yep.
accolades, I think that's going to be great. So yeah, the Coach Hart thing, I find it incredibly fun. It's just it's a good level of toxicity, man. That I just I love dabbling in. To be honest, I think it's cool. But in terms of his position grades last year for at least the starters, it was good. Anybody else that kind of came in, it was bad. And I mean, going back a couple of years, I mean, you can question like why wasn't Trevor Woods in the meeting room with him and those sorts of things. There are things worth questioning over, but I think this year is going to tell us a lot about him, especially now with George Hilo coaching the edges. People aren't going to be able to, deflect credit to George Hilo this time around. But I got a question for you regarding Rodney Colton. I don't know if you've watched any of his stuff, but his like 15-minute highlight reel starts out with this pass rush stuff, which I thought was pretty interesting. He would probably be a little bit of an undersized of an edge, but I've kind of been surprised that when Rodney Colton's been posting things, like George Hilo hasn't been tagged either. To me, kind of reminds me of a Keaton Wade a little bit in terms of kind of a guy that you can put all over the field. But I'm curious what you think about his game and where you think he would slot in here.
Yeah, I mean, he's not your prototypical linebacker here. I don't think he's going to slot in as like a middle linebacker in this defense. From everything I've seen, he is kind of on that outside linebacker, so maybe he is going to be an edge guy as well. So I would agree with that, just based on what we're seeing. Yeah, maybe a little undersized, but I think the Keaton Wade comparison is a very, very good comparison of what he could be.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's where we're going to be when it comes to Rodney Colton. Crawford will be interesting to see what he looks like. If he does commit, which it's, all signs are pushing that way, especially with the crystal ball from, was it Adam Munster Tiger did it, or was it our other Boulder beat reporter that gave it, which neither of them do crystal balls very often. So,
Yeah, I don't even know. Adam. So if Adam's
Adam, yeah.
putting it out.
Okay. So I think, again, they don't throw crystal balls out there left and right like some of the other beat writers out there for other schools. So you have to imagine that he's thinking about something there, or knows something when it comes to that. So I assume we're going to get him. But I mean, overall, I know that a lot of fans don't like Hart. A lot of them want to see a 5-star linebacker or a top transfer linebacker come. I think there's a lot more to it than just that. And, I think getting a Rodney Colton, I think getting a Carson Crawford, both great steps for this class. You know, Going back to what you said too, I've said it. I think that Hart can prove that he is a very good coach if Reginald Hughes and Martavius French both have good seasons at linebacker, which I think could very well happen. Not to mention that Salter's little brother has looked absolutely fantastic all spring at linebacker. So, overall, I think we're in okay shape. Would I like more depth? Would I like more competition there? Obviously, but only two guys are going to play for the most part, maybe a third. And for the fact of the matter is, we have three linebackers on the roster that can play. So that's really all you need when it comes to that middle linebacking room. And then the rest, we're talking about the edges. We're talking about Keaton Wade. We're talking about, Sam. We're talking about Arden Walker. We don't run necessarily that prototypical 3-4 defense. We run, more kind of the normal one. 4-3 defense, it seems, or at least that's what Livingston, I think, runs a lot. But
Yeah.
overall, I think we're doing okay with that. I'm not too worried, and I'm interested to see what happens with it. I think the defense is good enough that it's not going to be a big issue for us moving forward next season.
Yeah, man. Feel much better about the defense than offense I think has a little bit more question marks, obviously, when you lose two really amazing players. There's just going to be more question marks about it. But wanted to hit on Carson Crawford really quick. Like you said, at a Munster Tiger, he ain't going to start out the season 0 for 1. Like, he's just not going to do it. So Carson Crawford, he's going to commit here. 6'3", 215. He was previously committed to Texas State. So kind of similar to Maurice Williams, who committed today, flips from a G5 school. I don't think that these guys are – it's not like a London Merritt or somebody like that probably would profile to get time their freshman year. That's just my hunch. But, hey, I'm cool bringing some of these guys in to develop and to see where they pan out in a couple of years. Yeah, they could definitely be ball players, man. We're talking about 17-year-old kids.
Yeah. No, and I mean, like I said, we're seeing recruiting momentum building. It's not just
Yes.
these guys. I mean, the Xavier Payne news this past week of him decommitting from Florida State
Yes.
just after his visit to Colorado also tells me that okay, Xavier Payne, between that and then the news of what he thinks of Jordan Seaton and their relationship, I truly think that we'll probably see Xavier Payne also commit. I
Can
think in
you
the
talk a
next,
little bit more about that for people who don't know?
yeah. So Xavier Payne on his visit to Colorado, I don't know if it was last week or 2 weeks ago.
I think it was
I
last
can't
week.
remember. Yeah, dates are out of my head right now, Dave, with moving and everything like that.
Oh,
I
he
don't know what
visited
day of the
June
week it is.
16th.
Okay. So it was a little bit ago, but still, he just decommitted from Florida State this past week on the 22nd. One thing that he said, and reading from one of the articles, he said, me and Seaton actually got on the board for a little, compared my high school plays, and showed me how they would run it. We both love the game deeply, love talking football. Like him sitting with me wasn't because of the coaches. He was just popping into the offensive line room to hang up a poster, and they just immediately hit it off. So, like, I love hearing those kind of stories. I love hearing that connection between those players, and that to me right there, I mean, that's a quick bond where they just click like that quickly on a visit when it wasn't even like really forced, like you said. So I think that's a huge thing, and then the decommitment right after that. That's why I think we're golden for Xavier Payne to potentially commit to Colorado. So Payne, Crawford, Colton, those are guys that I think we're really, really, really starting to trend towards for Colorado. And then, I mean, Dave, well, we could talk about it. I've talked about it at length. The Polynesian week, the Polynesian
Dude,
weekend, the
that was
Polynesian recruiting
incredible.
extravaganza, whatever you want to call it at that point. Um, the all of a sudden trending for all of these Polynesian players and how they worked that weekend was a masterclass in
Yes.
recruiting and showing the strength of having a guy on staff like Domata Peko. What were your
Mhm.
thoughts on that whole weekend and where we're looking at when it comes to those Polynesian players?
I got to give a shout out to Chico, to Big Dog Chico, because him living out in Hawaii, that's always been like one of the things that he's been talking about, since Coach Prime's been here. Is like, when are we gonna start recruiting Polynesians, especially when we got our butt whooped on the line, in 2023. So I love that Pecco's here to be able to help out with this, and yeah, again, like the seeing the top two players in the state of Colorado visit. This is like what we've wanted to see. Colorado isn't super deep when it comes to the talent, but there are, what 30 guys that are for the most part recruited at the D1 level from year to year, something like that. So, yeah, the top end guys, you can get some really good players, and that has been something that we have just failed to do so far. And I think he's going to help out with that, with this. So I'm trying to make sure I get his name right because he goes by Ti, but Tufanua Ayanatana Umu Kais. Is that it? but he's
I think
the
that's as
number,
close as it's gonna get.
he's the number one player, Cherry Creek. I mean, this would be fantastic to get a defensive lineman. We wanted, oh man, what was his name? Is it Jordan Birch? Is it Jordan Birch that man, we wanted so bad to flip from Oregon back here, and he ended up going to Oregon. But I mean, our offensive and defensive lines can just improve so much with the Polynesian pipeline if that becomes true. That's how Utah's gotten good. BYU, some of these teams out west. We should have the advantage recruiting, I think, a lot of these players in the Big 12 outside of maybe Utah and BYU, maybe Arizona. But I think Pecco, man, he's, obviously not as, loud, I guess, or like, he doesn't have that star power that Warren Sapp has. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, right? But I think Domata Pecco's impact on the on recruiting and on the development of the team, I think it's been a great thing so far, man. I think he's really helped.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we've been missing drastically between the need for the Polynesian player, between the need to also keep Colorado guys in state. It just so happens that the top Colorado player is a Polynesian, um, player. Those are all big things that need to happen if Colorado truly wants to succeed long term under Prime.
Mhm.
We can recruit the playmakers, we can recruit the skill positions, but can we get those trench players in the specific needs, And we got Jordan Seaton on the offensive line recruit, 5-star offensive lineman. I don't believe Colorado's ever had a 5-star offensive lineman before Jordan Seaton. Can we get a 5 or 4-star defensive lineman, And can we also keep the Colorado players in state? I mean, let's be honest. CU and CSU do not keep talent in state. If you are a good football player in the state of Colorado, you are playing elsewhere.
Yeah.
And that's just a
Indeed.
fact. I mean, both teams do not keep players in state. It's been a problem for, oh, God, it's going on decades now that it seems that no good football player stays in state, it seems.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, obviously there's the exceptions of the rule and there's guys, but there's something about staying in state, going to this school, making a name for yourself, that you become legendary in this state. You look at some of the guys that have stayed over the years in the area, one that comes to the top of my head, and Dave, you and I can agree on this as a Broncos fans,
Yeah.
good old Joel Dreesen was a big time, Fort Morgan,
Yeah.
Colorado CSU player, had an unbelievable career and went on to play in the NFL and be a very effective NFL tight end. So, like, those guys that do that, they create themselves a legend within the state of Colorado, and no more players need to do that.
Yes.
They really, really do. At least I hope they do. Um, and I hope that now that Colorado is starting to kind of break out and be the school that it is, where it's now more of a national scale, I would hope that some of the kids playing ball right now are watching it happen and being like, again, dreaming of the whole, I want to play at Colorado. I want to play in my backyard. I get to go watch Ralphie on Saturday. And then, I play football and I'm like, that's my dream, similar to like Joel Klatt growing up when
Mhm.
he would get to go to CU games and say, I want to run out on that field with Ralphie, and then going and doing it. How many more players are we going to start seeing that now that it's such a big impact to go to Colorado and it's such a, high profile thing to do. So I hope that we start seeing it more. And this class, I think, is one of the ones to really focus on because there are some really good, talented football players in the 2026 class for Colorado.
Wonderfully said. Shout out to Fort Morgan. Russ, I don't think I've ever told you this, but my dad is from Fort Morgan. So, yeah, grew up visiting, smelling the sugar beet plant.
Oh,
It was god awful, and
uh-huh.
yeah, I ain't going back ever since my aunt passed away years ago. I ain't ever going back, but it would be really cool, Russ. Like, I can't think of the last time, at least since like I've been following Colorado closely, um, when they've gotten the both number 1 and 2 players in the state in their high school recruiting class. We got the opportunity with T.I. being the number one on the defensive line from Cherry Creek, and then Deacon Schmidt being the number 2 guy. Well, I guess the composite has him as the number 1 guy, as you see right there. But 2 4-star players, man. How are you feeling about Deacon Schmidt right now? And maybe even comparing and contrasting this with another local guy, Breck.
Yeah, I've talked about it. You know, Deacon obviously is committing this weekend. I told everybody 2 weeks ago on stream, I was like, if you start seeing more, social media activity with Deacon where you're seeing like Gunner, posting up at Deacon's school or posting up at 6-0 and meeting with Deacon again and really pushing, kind of like how Brett did it for Gavin Mueller. Like
Mm,
literally Brett Bartolone like visited Gavin Mueller 4 times in a week span right before he committed.
mhm.
And that's why I was like the whole time I was like, oh, Gavin Mueller's committing. I said that if we see that with Deacon, then I think he's a lock. If we don't, I'm thinking that they've probably moved on or started doing something else. You see the Xavier Payne stuff. You see some of the other offensive linemen they're starting to offer and go after. I'm wondering if they're moving on. They're just not liking what they're seeing because, again, I mean, we can go back to it, Dave. I mean, you've probably obviously followed it, but some of the words that Matt McChesney said about Deacon, that said about Breck, that rubbed some CU fans the wrong way, that I've talked about at length. The moment he said like you've got to, overpay them was the quote, like literally came out of his mouth to get him. I was like, that's the wrong word to use. Like I'm totally, and you tell me if you agree with this. I'm totally okay with a kid getting his worth, but using the word overpay to get somebody is not a positive vocab when it comes to somebody. It's saying like your school is so bad that the only way I'm going to play for you is if you overpay on my value. That's what I hear when I hear that. Now I don't know if that's truly what he meant. I'm not sure if he misspoke or what it is. Um, but hearing that was immediately when I started to like change my tune on Deacon and Breck of like, well, maybe we really don't have a chance at this because, they might be putting a premium on getting them to come to Colorado rather than go to a school like an Oklahoma, like a Bama, like these other schools that are going after them. What are your thoughts
Yeah.
on that whole saga in the comments and your feelings on Deacon and Breck at this point?
Yeah, I'll agree with our friend over here. Don't give a damn. CU fans don't like hearing what Matt has to say. I think sometimes, it can be how he says things, which, how you pointed out. But I mean, when you're talking about recruiting, just because, a player is in state should not mean that, and we're just still not there as a program right now to where we can expect guys to consistently take less to be here. And that's how I feel. Now I know that there's been reports that Jordan Seaton might have taken less money than what Tennessee offered, things like that. But I think for like the most part, a lot of these blue chip guys see you as the right spot because of what we have going on here, and the money also makes sense. And I think Matt obviously has relationship with these guys that can easily be um, seen as a conflict of interest, right? He coaches them, but he wants CU to be good, right? He's trying to drive their recruitment. So I understand like why people are going to be fed up about it, but um, yeah, like I the money has to be right, whether they're in state or out of state. That's how I feel about it. It's got to be right. If it's not going to be right, and if it's just not the right fit, they're not feeling it with Gunner White, then fine. Like we move off. But again, I think a lot of people have the problems with kind of how Matt can say things sometimes. But like I didn't think when you like break it down, I don't think it was anything regarding of him being butthurt about not being on staff or anything like that. I don't see it that way. But he truly is somebody who has, you know, he has interests that are not always aligned together all the time. He's split. So I still feel good about Deacon Schmidt. I don't know if I feel like he is an absolute lock, but I do feel much better about him than Breck. And yeah, I mean, maybe I'm just willing this into existence, but uh, he's just been talked about for so long, since Coach Prime has been here, since, Matt McChesney talking him up, on his podcast and everything like that. He's been somebody that we've been following along the last couple of years. And Windsor, it's like, what, 15 minutes from Boulder? Like, it would be
Yeah.
so cool to see him stay home.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you on everything you're saying on this. Like, because I agree. Like, Matt's role is to get these guys in a good position, and get these guys in a place to succeed. Um, I just worry sometimes, and we're seeing it a lot, like now, Dave, where guys are just going to schools because of the high profileness of it, the SEC, the Big Ten. I see the comments. I mean, lots of people are saying it like, oh, you have no chance. And, this player's an SEC player. Like, that's great. Is that the right spot for you? Like, are you making the right decision for your future? Like, are you really thinking about your future in the right way? I mean, let's be honest. Colorado's, and I don't care what anybody says, you have to be stupid not to notice what's happening right now, because this past class of graduating players for Colorado who got drafted in the NFL, who are playing on NFL rosters right now, and the not walk-ons, but the free agent players that are playing. There is a buzz around the NFL that these players are more mature, they're more ready for the NFL game than a lot of the other either draftable players or free agent players that are out there. And that's just a fact. It's literally what's being said around the NFL. It's literally what we're seeing on day-to-days of practices and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So what that tells me is that the Coach Prime quote unquote experiment with his coaching staff and how they're preparing players is 100% working. And you can't tell me that if this continues and that this reputation continues to build, that teams are not going to start taking more chances on Colorado players and drafting them into the NFL simply based on the reputation that Colorado is going to have as far as how they prep guys. It's part of the reason that we as fans can go and celebrate this upcoming season when your LeJontay Westers succeed, when your
Yeah.
Cam Silman Craig succeed. When all of these players start making plays in the NFL, and they're low round draft picks and it's going across the board, people are going to start to notice that what Coach Prime does, he knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's teaching these kids. He knows what he's talking about behind closed doors, which we don't see all the time. And so the fact is that more and more, they're going to start to notice, like, if you go to Colorado, you have a very good chance of getting drafted if you can succeed there. Because if you can succeed there, you can succeed anywhere.
Mhm.
And so, I'm hoping that comes across in a good way. I'm hoping that we start to see more from it, because there's just way too many people that just think, oh, just because you have the SEC next to your name, you're going to be successful. That's not always the case. I get it. Yeah. When a majority of the skilled players go to the SEC, you're going to have the most skilled players. It's just the way it's going to work. The football's going to look good. They're going to win championships, all of that stuff. I get it. But we're starting to see that change a little bit. And I do think that Colorado is going to prove, that you can come here, be successful, but you're also going to be able to be successful in your career and go on to that NFL level. So I think that's what we're seeing right now. And I think if these players are smart, I mean, Deacon and Breck, like, I get it, the bright lights, the shininess of an SEC or a Big Ten school, but I know for a fact that Breck's family wants him to go to CU. Like, they want him to be down the road. His parents absolutely love Coach Prime. They love the program, all of that. Same with Deacon's family. Like, they want to be able to watch the kid in the backyard, the hometown hero, literally, 15, 20 minutes away from campus for every game. You can't imagine that those parents wouldn't want that for him. And with CU's attention and how successful they're becoming, like, there's no reason not to be a part of that. So that's where we're at. So I think it's going to be very interesting what's going to come from this and what's going to happen next. But Dave, I hope it changes. I hope kids don't just, go for the flash and start to realize that, it's really important making this decision more so than just, hey, how much money am I making when that happens? So when it comes to Deacon and Breck, by the way, Dave, I'm not going to be too worried no matter where they commit.
Mhm.
I'm going to be more worried where they're committed and signed to come November
Yeah.
because I think both of those guys, if they commit early somewhere else, they're going to be flip candidates big time.
That,
Because you
yes.
can't tell me, Dave, that if we have a successful season and we start running the ball, and we successfully run the ball, and things start looking really good at Colorado, that they're not going to want to say, "Oh, I can play in my own backyard and get the things that I want to get." Like you can't tell me that they're not going to think about that, right?
Yeah. Totally, man. And I think again, like the transfer portal stuff has made rebuilds so much quicker. And yeah, like I don't know, but in context too, this being the most dead program like ever in the history of like college football, pretty much like in 2022. Sometimes you're just gonna have to see the results over, multiple seasons before you start to get the momentum that you want with these guys. And I think the fact that we are starting to get serious interest from the top players in Colorado, I think is a really good sign. Now the next step is closing on some of these guys. Um, there was something that I wanted to point out here very quickly. Sorry if I'm lagging. My computer's being a little goofy, but I think where was it? Let me see if my chat will scroll up. Oh yeah, Robert Mathis. Serious question. What is our game plan for Georgia Tech? With all due respect, Robert, we don't even know who the starting quarterback, running back, offensive line is yet, man. I don't even know. I don't even know if we can talk game plan right now. We're just gonna have to see. But speaking of that, we don't know who our starting running back, offensive line is going to be. But Russ, I'll stand on this. If we can have a 1,000-yard rusher, and I'll go as far to say it can even be the freaking quarterback. It can even be Caden Salter, man. If we can get a 1,000-yard rusher, I think, man, we could still flip KJ Edwards. I still think it could happen. I know Marshall Faulk's here, which is great, but in the grand scheme of things, if you're going by how this program has treated running the ball over the last 2 years, this guy had no business even taking time to come out to see you. Yeah, man. If we can rush for 1,000 yards, we're going to have a winning record. We're going to get better trench players, and we might get a damn good running back too. Wouldn't that be fun?
I 100% agree, Dave. I've been saying this. I've been beating this drum since the end of last season. Like, unfortunately, we've got to prove that we are going to run the ball. We have done 2 seasons of not doing that after saying we were going to. You bring in a Marshall Falk. Um, you know, to those people who are again like Marshall Falk isn't doing great recruiting, all that. I think Marshall Falk's main focus right now is getting the running back room good and ready to do something like 1,000-yard season. And if that happens, yeah, the floodgates open. I do think that we are a flip candidate for Breck, for Deacon, for KJ. I think all of those guys are again they're drawn to what they see in front of them, which is
Mhm.
these are proven programs that are offering me a lot of money. I'm going to take it. Now, I'm sure deep down, I'm sure there are things inside of them that say, "Hey, oh, man, I would love to go to Colorado, but I don't know. I don't." It goes back to before this, Dave. It goes back to when people were like, you know, "Is Coach Prime going to be around after his kids?" Am I going to commit to Colorado if Coach Prime is not going to be there?
Oh, I'm so glad we
And
don't have that one to deal with anymore.
well, except now we do because we moved on to, well, are we going to run the ball? Like Colorado doesn't run the ball, so no running back is ever going to commit to Colorado because they don't know how to run the ball and they're not going to run the ball. Or these top offensive linemen, even though again we did get Jordan Seaton, but let's ignore that ever happened because we can't get these other guys now because of that. let's ignore Cardi Smith. Let's ignore Chauncey Gooden. Let's ignore these other offensive linemen. Like, if as bad as it sounds, if Deacon and Breck don't want to be a part of Colorado, then that's perfectly fine. They are not, 5-star, unbelievable offensive linemen like a Jordan's generational
Right.
talent. They are, as bad as it sounds, and I'm again nothing against those two. They're going to be amazing players at the college level, but those level of players are a dime a dozen coming out of high school. Now,
Mhm.
what they develop in is what you're looking for, and that's going to be something completely different. So again, it's not the end of the world if they don't commit. I think the bad part of that is, yeah, you would like to keep Colorado kids in Colorado. That's the part that would suck about them. But Colorado could turn their attention and go after other guys that could fill those needs, and it wouldn't be the end of the world. Overall, though, I think what we're waiting for and what really is going to happen is anybody who doesn't commit that maybe, has really shown some big interest to Colorado, don't crash out. Don't freak out that they're not coming. Don't say it's the end of the world. When Deacon on Saturday puts on the OU hat, like, it's not the end of the world, guys. Things will be fine. Things will get figured out so long as we start to see, like you said, run the ball. And if we get 1,000-yard rusher, I'm on board with that, Dave. We're going to be in the Big 12
Oh,
championship game. I'll call it now.
oh, oh
1,000-yard
man.
rusher means that we're in the Big 12 championship game, means that we're in the college football playoff. I mean, if we were to, fast forward and you and I are talking at the end of the season and we're talking about 1,000-yard rusher, then we're also talking about those two things in the same sentence, because that's probably going to happen too.
It'd be freaking amazing. It'd be amazing. We didn't bring in Marshall Faulk to treat the room like it's being coached by Coach Flea still. That's what I'm hinging all of this hope on. But last thing, and then I do want to talk about Cedar Morgan, a few of the other guys. But Colorado's in a really good situation being located where they're at because, for instance, you got blue chip guys in Florida. You got to fight Miami, Florida, Florida State, handful of other schools. Alabama has, Auburn to deal with as a thorn in their side, right? Georgia, I guess they kind of had the monopoly there. Georgia Tech ain't really anything, but you get what I'm saying. Texas, there are a ton of schools out there, right? Colorado's got the ability, and they're so kind of like out on their own, like geographically, to where, yeah, if this thing really comes together as it is, but continues along that line of improving every single year, man, it would be great where you can just start to imagine, the top 2-3 guys in Colorado, they're always going to be buffs, like that type of thing. It can happen. You're going up against CSU, Air Force, things like that. It could just be such a nice little advantage to have when we don't have the advantage against a lot of these other schools nationally recruiting, although we're doing much better.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the goal. That's the goal, Dave. It needs to get to that eventually, and I think it will. Again, Coach Prime sticks around longer, continues the trajectory of the program. If all of that starts to happen, these kids that are growing up in Colorado, right in the backyard, they're going to CU games. They're seeing what's going on at CU right in their own backyard. You'll start to see that increase. But the fact that we're even, and again, you and I, as long-term Buffs fans, know that this is still a dream to us,
Mm-hmm.
that we get to talk about this like we do. We get to experience it like we do. I mean, literally 3 years ago, we were getting not a single recruit, let alone 3 stars, let alone 4 stars, let alone the top offensive lineman in the country, one of the top quarterbacks in the country. We could have never dreamed of this 4 years ago. People don't understand that. And yet we still got people crashing out because, oh, we lost out on, this person, and we've got somebody, who's right behind it being replaced. Like, it's just absolutely insane to me sometimes that people are, very forgetful of where we came from and what we're doing. Like, things are getting better each and every day, but there's got to be some patience. There's got to be some patience that it's going to get better and continue to get better. But we'll see where it's at. When it comes to like Cedar Morgan, everybody's like, I've been told for weeks that he was a lock to Bama, and they're still doing it in the chat right now. There's tons of people saying lock to Bama, and yet Cedar Morgan popped up most likely on his own dime, or at least, maybe. I mean, it wasn't an official visit, on his own to come visit for another weekend after just being here in Boulder, what, 2 weeks before that?
Yeah.
3 weeks before that? Like, I'm sorry. What does that tell you? But sure, he's a absolute Bama lock, the kid who keeps coming back to Boulder and who seems to have a very good relationship. And let's just say, Dave, from our own knowledge, I think things are pretty darn good with Cedarian Morgan. From everything that I've heard going on in Boulder, I think we're a lot. I think the people who are saying that Cedarian Morgan are locked to Bama, I think they don't want to see Colorado lock him up and bring him in. That's the only thing I can think of, because I know for a fact that they're not really going off of anything saying that versus what we're actually hearing out of Boulder and how things have been going with Cedarian Morgan.
Yeah, man. I like how the momentum's going right now. Again, even if you got guys commit right now, you still got to continue to recruit them to lock that up in December, right? But with some of these high profile guys, as long as we're continuing to lurk around, man, that's really where we want to be. And yeah, like, okay, the crystal balls come out about Alabama. Okay. But yeah, with him showing up on an unofficial, I mean, I love snooze, but he's not just flying out here to eat, snooze, man. He's not, he's not coming out here to eat brunch. He's serious about the program, man. And for him to do that right before a Bama OV, I think is, yeah, like that does deserve kind of some attention. It does raise an eyebrow, but I think, again, with some of these high profile guys, the biggest thing that they're going to pay attention to is the development of the team from now, year 2 to year 3. How do these other quarterbacks or quarterback play? With Shador gone, how does the offense look? Does it still look broken? Does it look more balanced? Like, if we can continue to develop in this fashion, I think that we're going to be right there. Now, I do want to ask you this. It's been a while since we've had anything with Chris Henry Jr., the number 1 wide receiver in the country. What's up, Pac-Man Jones got arrested again, man? I think he's his adopted father, which is sad, but I hope everything's all right there. But do you think Chris Henry Jr., I think he's committed to OSU right now, or maybe it's it's like a crystal ball, but with our focus on Cedarian Moore, do you think like the Chris Henry Jr. stuff is just, kind of over, even though we have the Domata Pecco and Pac-Man Jones, Coach Prime connections?
I mean, I thought that originally. We'll see, like I said. And like you just said, who knows between now and November what's going to happen. Let's be completely honest. We have no clue what'll happen between now and December as far as recruiting goes, and we don't know as far as transfers go. If a
Mhm.
player like Chris Henry Jr. is going to a Buckeye team that is obviously loaded at wide receiver with high talent. Um, who knows? Maybe he goes there for a year and doesn't end up panning out like they thought and being that, like, day one 5-star, unbelievable wide receiver, and he wants to go elsewhere. If I'm putting money on, if he were to transfer, and again, I just said if he were to transfer, because I'm sure somebody would be like, he'll never transfer. I get that. He probably won't. But if he were, exactly the team that he'll go to at that point.
Right.
Because again, it goes back to what I said earlier of players picking for namesake, picking for, a bigger amount of money, whatever it may not always be the best place for you and for your development as a player. And that's just a case that it might happen, when it comes to that. So, if something were to happen, if he weren't able to pan out exactly as he needed to at Ohio State, I think then at that point we come into play, potentially for a guy like that. It's just nice that we get to talk about this and talk about the number one. And I saw a comment again of like, oh, Cedar Morgan's only been to CU twice. The fact is, he's been to CU twice in 3 weeks. And last time I checked, Coach Prime doesn't like if you want to use this as clout, he cuts you off immediately. Like you are going to get cut off. Like I guarantee you, we will never hear the name Ojo again in the same sentence with Colorado after coming and then immediately like just say disconnecting from it. You're not getting a second chance when it comes to that with Coach Prime. Coach Prime isn't about bringing guys in on OVs and bringing guys in on visits just for the heck of it. Like he wants to know truly that you are committed to Colorado, like you're thinking about it. It's a very important thing to you. So to let the keyword let Cedar Morgan come 2 times in a matter of 3-4 weeks, that tells you a lot right there. Because again, Coach Prime isn't just going to let you come hang out and see you and post photos online multiple times unless something's going on and
Mhm.
unless you've heard something out of the kid's mouth to them that we haven't. So that is why when it looks like the Cedar Morgan shows back up in Boulder right away, that tells you a lot about what's going on.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of people are ignoring a lot of that and just again thinking that it's just no chance whatsoever. There are players that are going to use us as clout. They're not going to come to see you, but there aren't very many players, Dave, that come on multiple visits and then don't end up committing to Colorado. That's just not the case.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, So that's where we're at. Again, we're using what we've already seen happen in past years when it comes to recruiting. Because again, they have those real conversations in that office. And if Coach Prime doesn't like what he's hearing from you and your people, he just immediately moves on and tells you to kick rocks and go elsewhere. And that's what we've
Mm.
seen with a lot of players that have not ended up in Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah, right now it is kinda starting to feel like, some of the primary targets that we've had in years past. Like you talked about Jordan Seaton, Julian Lewis, again, like a lot of these top players, they end up at the top programs. It makes sense, but it's not always what all these top players want to do. There are exceptions, and we've been able to take advantage of that. Having Coach Prime creating like a really unique program here, no doubt about it. So, yeah, I'll be honest with the crystal balls. Like I expect him to commit to Bama. Like that's what I expect. But similar to what my friend Rawhide said last year with Julian Lewis affirming his USC commit around this time, is like, dude, not even like let them have that. Like let us continue to press through the fall, and then you see the flippening. And yeah, man, that's what I want to see with Cedar Morgan, man. And yeah, like I don't know, man. And also, I was gonna say this, guys like Jordan C and Julian Lewis, whatever. Even I don't know, maybe London Merritt. He's an interesting case because I really do feel like it meant more to us getting him than him just going to Ohio State, man. And like honestly, he was just another edge rusher there. But he's like a building block of this program here right now. Like I firmly believe that. And I think that's why we also compensated him more than what Ohio State was willing to give him. So yeah, like there are the money's right, but also like the situation's right. Where sometimes, man, um, it means more for us to get these recruits, and they reciprocate that, man, and they appreciate it, man. So I thought, man, London Merritt coming out here, Cardi Smith last year, which by the way, is he like 400 pounds now? Like, is he really like that ginormous? Did you see that photo of him?
No, I did not see it.
Yeah, I think they had him next to man, who's our guy that we got? Jaheim Otis, dude. He looks like twice the size of Jaheim Otis, man. He must be eating steak every day and potatoes.
Yeah, no. Cardi looking mean. Yeah, now I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Cardi looking real mean when you look at him next to Jaheim Otis.
I
That
know, man.
kid is going to be a starting tackle on this program
Oh my.
either next year or the year after. But for
Hell, man, we,
sure,
we we might need him right now this year, man. If if he's got that weight up, man, maybe he's ready to roll.
it- everybody was questioning, where's our right tackle? Where's the really good right tackle? Maybe part of the reason they only brought in kind of mid-tier transfers that were going to be in that area, maybe that was because they liked what they were seeing out of Cardi. So who knows? But oh man, guys, the season can't come soon enough. The season can't come soon enough, and we're getting there, Dave. I mean, we're about to hit July, and then things are really going to start to get, as they would say, spicy up in here because that Georgia Tech game will be here before we know it. And I know a lot of people want to talk about it, and I know you said earlier too, like it's hard. We don't know who's starting where. This isn't like past seasons where you knew Shador was the quarterback and you knew that you had Travis Hunter on the team. It's going to be a little bit harder to predict this soon what's going on without knowing how Caden Salter doing. Is Julian Lewis going to start, or is he going to, sit back for 1 year? There's a lot of stuff to unpack with that we're going to have to do, in the coming weeks. But it's a very, very interesting time right now, and things are starting to really heat up when it comes to everything Colorado football.
No doubt about it. I want to shout out Kodiak Broncos podcast, friend of the show, $5 super. Thank you. Saying if Jeremiah Smith transfers to CU, they would win the Natty. You're absolutely right. Jeremiah Smith is basically, the second coming of Christ on the football field. He would definitely win us a Natty. But I do want to say this too. With some of these in-state guys, Russ, as long as we continue to build, I mean, even if they end up going somewhere else, they can always come back like Arden Walker did, man.
Yep.
We were right there with Arden Walker, and now again, so you want to continue to leave these doors open to an extent. Obviously, it's a little bit different when you commit and then you leave the program or decommit. We draw a hard line there. But I think establishing relationships, particularly with a lot of these high-end players coming out of Colorado, maybe it doesn't even return much dividends this next year, but it could down the line here in 2-3 years.
Absolutely. Every one of these guys, as long as the bridge isn't burned and as long as it doesn't seem like it was a money decision, um, I think there's always openings for transfers. And I do think that some of those guys are big time transfer candidates. I looked at one from this last cycle, Dave, and think if you can realize it, but when that kid flipped away from Colorado, I immediately knew, oh wow, I guarantee he's the type of player that's going to be in the transfer portal after the season. And sure enough, Callan Chandler, you know, waited for that offer from Missouri, went to Missouri, ends up in the transfer portal. Things didn't work out for him like they did. And that was a guy who was like all CU all the time, and then all of a sudden just flips at the moment that his hometown
Oh,
school offers him.
bro. He's at Nevada now.
He's where?
Nevada,
Yep.
I think.
It, I think it was something like that, but
Oh, no,
yeah,
he's from Nevada, my bad. Where is he
yeah. What
now?
did
No, he's
yeah, he is.
Northwestern. Sorry,
Yeah, he
Northwestern.
went with our good old guy O'Boyle.
Oh, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, we got a better guy from Northwestern. Mr. Flexibility, whatever his name is, out there looking like Gumby, doing the splits, rolling over. What's his name? Man, I can't.
Lovelace.
Yes, Lovelace, man. I'm a fan of Lovelace, man. You think he's going to be our starting center?
I mean, that's one of the most up for, next to the quarterback competition. That's the one position I think is going to have some of the most competition for next year. So I think those guys were really, really smart to come to Colorado if they're a center. So yeah, absolutely smart move. I'm going to be very interested. That's going to be another position battle we're going to have to watch as the summer progresses. So it's that, the quarterback battle. I think those are the two positions that I'm really looking at. And then right tackle. I mean, right tackle isn't so much more of like a competition. It's just trying to figure out, okay, who is going to take that spot? Because if I'm being honest right now, I have no clue who that's going to be because there's so many people. But yeah,
All
that
name team
starting.
Larry Johnson the third. I love that. Larry Johnson's great name. Larry Johnson the third. You gotta start him.
Yeah, I mean, that was who I had penciled in initially after he transferred. We'll see what happens, with Cardi putting on the size. He might be able to push for that now. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's gonna be interesting, but we got some great things to watch. And as content creators and guys who get to talk ball, we are gonna have plenty to talk about in the next month and a half. Plenty. And I think fans are gonna have plenty to talk about
Mhm.
because there is not gonna be a dull moment here in the next few weeks.
Dude, fun every day. Russ, dude, thanks for doing this with me, especially, while you're on the East Coast right now. Greatly appreciated. Appreciative of you staying up late. Thank you to everybody in the chat. You guys, are hilarious. Um, yeah. Anyways, y'all smash that like and subscribe to Buffs News Weekly. You do have a new show, right? Or a new segment on Mondays.
Yeah.
Tell us about it. How's it been going? I'm sorry I haven't tuned in yet.
So hasn't premiered just yet.
Oh,
First show is going to be August 18th. That's the week before the first week of the season. So the whole idea is, I figure half the time what my shows are is kind of that, afternoon sports radio show. And I figured, what better way than to really bring that into the mainstream again, except to do our very own, afternoon sports radio call-in show. So every Monday we're going to do it at 4 o'clock Mountain. We're going to have a phone number that you guys can call in, old school phone number that you guys can talk. Obviously, I'll do my best to screen calls, and you're not going to just be able to say whatever you want. But the whole idea is to bring that back and make it more popular again, and do it with CU stuff. And so, yeah, we're going to start it August 18th and do it each Monday during the season. Get people's reactions from the game that weekend, and then also have people talk about the following week and kind of what they're looking for. So, really excited to get to do that. So, August 18th, make sure everybody uh, tunes in as a part of that. All that going forward. And I absolutely love the new fan right there with the username.
we we got a rivalry, man, between Don't Give a Damn and Don't Give a Damn's Cut, man. It's what better what better way to spend an evening on June 25th, man? Man, I swear there is no fan base like this fan base, man. There's no fan base as toxic as this one, man. When it comes to this, man, you absolutely love it. You love to
Yep.
see it.
Oh no, I love it.
Hopefully, I don't get you demonetized for saying cuck.
I don't know. I don't know, Dave. I really don't.
Man, well, I guess we'll find out, man. So, well, cool. I guess, I'll be back tomorrow with some sort of video. I'm trying to work on like some more like evergreen stuff, Russ, on like
Yeah.
maybe some things like historical. Maybe I talk about the Nebraska rivalry. Maybe I do a random video on like Laviska Chenault. Maybe I do a video on, I don't know, like, is there any like random CU stuff that, you feel like might be funny to talk about, man? Mel Tucker leaving, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Getting Midnight
Some good
Mel.
historical. I think a Joel Klatt episode would be good because I don't know if a lot of people realize that he was a walk-on quarterback. Uh, that's always an interesting one. Gosh, you go back and look at how many different players you could do, or different teams covering. I mean, you could talk about the big CU scandal from the 2000s that almost killed the football program entirely. That's another good one.
Yeah.
Maybe some history about some of the teams we're playing this year.
Ooh.
Uh, any past history between Colorado and Georgia Tech, any past history with maybe BYU and what happened last year, and what that looks like. those will all be cool topics, I think, to be able to learn about a little bit more.
Yes, yes. Well, yeah, I might do some of those things. So my goal is just to put one out in the month of July because it will like actually take some real planning and stuff. So
Yeah, those are no joke. I mean, as somebody who started out just doing, you know, 10 to 15-minute highly edited videos, they take a long time to put together for
mhm,
sure.
mhm. Um, but Russ, man, I'll let you get to it, man. This was fun, man. I'm glad we were able to do this, and I can't wait to be connecting regularly once the fall camp and all that stuff kicks off. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, again, everybody in the chat, thank you so much. We're going to get a ton of blue chip guys. We're going to continue to troll the rest of college football. And this is going to continue to be the most fun thing in college football of all time. Have a wonderful evening. Sco Buffs.